Welcome to the SPEAKPact podcast, where high-performing speakers and the producers who hire them merge to give you the insider secrets to the lucrative speaking industry. Antoniette Rose, your podcast host and celebrated speaker agent, unveils insider success strategies. Discover a nexus of thought leaders and bookers, maximizing your potential in each and every episode. Your ticket to ultimate speaking success begins right here. Catch the transformative insights waiting for you on the SPEAKPact podcast, hosted by the industry powerhouse herself, Antoniette Rose.
Welcome back to SPEAKPact. I am thrilled that you are here with us today, and you are in for a treat. We have Brend from Master Talk with us, and he is truly a master when it comes to communications and to giving killer talks on stage. So we're going to dive in to his expertise, and I'll tell you what, you're in the right place at the right time, because to get him one-to-one, you're going to pay a pretty penny. So he has graciously brought his skills to the SPEAKPact audience, and we're going to dive deep for the next 45 minutes. Stay tuned, stick with us. I'm going to read his bio, and then we're going to dive right in. Brend Kumarasamy is founder of the Master Talk organization, which you're going to get to hear about a little bit more here in a few moments. He is a consultant and coaches entrepreneurs, executives, and professionals to become world-class communicators. And he himself, I've gotten to work with him. He is a world-class communicator, and it's been hard-earned. So, Brend, thank you so much for bringing your expertise to our audience today. He grew up in Montreal as a child of Sri Lankan immigrants. Brend faced early challenges navigating French language schooling, that must have been a lot of fun, and overcoming self-doubt about public speaking. Those experiences shaped his mission to help others master the art of communication with confidence, grace, and seemingly ease. And I'll tell you what, he's being he actually has a pretty powerful backstory. So I don't know if we're going to get into that today, Brend, but if we don't, definitely look Brend up, because you're being humble. There's a lot that comes packed in this man. All right, so let's dive right in, Brend. Thank you for being with us.
Of course, thanks for having me, Anthony.
All right, so first of all, tell me why communication became so important to you. I know that you were someone who stepped into a whole world that had a completely different culture, a completely different language, and you had to adjust very quickly. I'm sure that shaped who you are today and the creation of Master Talk. So kind of give us some background.
Yeah, absolutely happy to do that, Anthony. And it's great to be on the show. Yeah, so for me, when my story started in the context of Master Talk when I was in college. So funny enough, I studied the complete opposite of what you think a speaking professional studies, which is accounting. I wanted to work at a big accounting firm. I wasn't really looking to be a professional speaker or a coach. But what happened was, in my first semester of college, I started doing these things called case competitions. Think of it like professional sports for nerds. So other guys my age are playing like rugby or football or some other dangerous sport you probably wouldn't see me playing. I did presentations competitively in college, and that's how I learned how to speak. And the main reason I did that was to get a job, Antoniette. I wasn't looking to be a communications professional. It's just a lot of the great companies like IBM, PwC, Deloitte, they all hire out of these competitions. That's how I got my first job out of college. And as I was doing these presentations, I started to coach the other students on how to speak just because I had some knack for it and I just really liked doing it. And I accidentally developed a skill set in teaching other people how to talk. And then by the time I was 22, I started creating social media content, and the rest is history.
Well, you are a success story that happened very, very young. You became, I don't want to give away the numbers, but you achieved what many aspire to achieve in a lifetime, right? in your early 20s. So that alone speaks to your ability to communicate, the strategies that you came up with to communicate. So let's speak in the speaking world, right? No matter what your focus is, the better communicator is going to get the better engagements, right? Let's say you're a conference speaker who monetizes the audience versus the actual keynote checks. The better you can communicate from A to Z, right? When you're first breaking the ice with the decision maker for that event, and then you deliver gold standard because of your communication skills, and then you follow up because many times your next best engagement is going to come from either that audience or that host, right? So all of that requires next level communication skills. Let's say you are a corporate trainer instead, not necessarily a corporate conference speaker. When it comes to corporate training, the pockets are deeper, the opportunities are more frequent, but they're also different. You're not really monetizing the audience, you're monetizing that organization to hire you for other regions, maybe even for some of their vendors to bring your expertise in. So again, communicating before, during, and after is key. How has this helped the speaking side of your career, and how has it helped Master Talk become the success that it is today?
Yeah, absolutely, Antoinette. The way I see it, especially in the context of professional speaking, and we all know this, is that the best professional speakers in the world, most of them often deliver the same talk over and over and over again, right? It's a big misconception in the industry where, yeah, people have different speaking topics, but Tony Robbins says the same thing every time. And he's been running Unleash the Power Within for 35 years, 40 years. And nobody's going up to Tony and saying, please, Tony, could you talk about potatoes this time? Like, could you talk about your favorite cooking recipes? No, Tony. The reason I paid you money is so that I can see you say the same thing over and over again. It's the same reason that whenever we go to a concert with our favorite musician, I don't care if it's Taylor Swift, if you're into that, or The Weeknd, yes, we want to hear the new songs, but we're really there to sing the best hits. And that's really the big mindset change in professional speaking. It's all about what is your best hit, and and if you don't have a lot of speaking gigs right now, how can you practice that best hit so many times that when you get that opportunity, and this is what I always like to say to people, that you are undeniable on stage. When you get discovered, when you get that America's Got Talent opportunity, and for you, it might just be a corporate training opportunity at IBM. It might be a professional associations conference in New York City. Whatever that opportunity is, make sure that you're ready for it. So that way, when you get up on stage, you're undeniable.
Ooh, we are singing the same song because you used the concert analogy. I absolutely love what you said, Brendan, and I've said it on this show before, but it can't be said enough because it's so important. You are exactly right. So many speakers think that, like authors, right, to become more successful, you need to have a series or a bank of talks. But that's actually exactly opposite. You do need to have a bank of stories, a bank of anecdotes. You need to be in touch with the mood of the room, but also the mood of the culture, the world, what's going on, and pull in your stories to support that core talk. I'll give a quick different analogy. You use music, I use food, right? There's this Italian restaurant that my husband and I have loved for years, and they did a couple of things. We would go at least once a month, if not more, right? We absolutely loved this restaurant, number one for their food, but also for their music. We enjoy dancing together, and it was just the right musician. So the last time we went, number one, they changed my favorite plate. I'm like, don't miss this. I come here for this plate every single time I come. That's what I'm expecting. That's what I want. When I need that nourishment, that's what I come for. Right, same for speaking. When people know that they need your talk to get them to that next level, they come for that nourishment. The other thing they did is they changed the band, which is fine, but dramatically, completely different style, completely different feel. We just lost it, right? It's like, well, I guess they've gone in a different direction. we're not going with them. And as speakers, if you're going to change something up, do it in micro movements. Do not pendulum swing, because you will lose your following and you're basically starting from square one.
I mean, there's so many great points you mentioned. I love the analogy around the Italian restaurant because it's so true. Like, there's two parts to that. One is if something is working, I know it's so simple, but people just don't follow simple advice. If something's working really, really well, do not change it. But the other piece is also true. If you're getting started as a speaker and you don't know which topic lands or which story lands, that's totally fine. You try different things. But once you figure out through trial and error, similar to how a stand-up comedian will tell a bunch of different jokes at small comedy clubs, but then figure out what are the best ones and package them all together for the Netflix special. It's the same game here where I'll split test different ideas, different stories across smaller audiences. But when I get the big corporate deal, I just go in with what I know works because I want more business from that deal. I don't want to lose that opportunity.
Right. Yeah. So much wisdom there. Jerry Seinfeld still does that. I mean, he's probably multi whatever cajillion millionaire, and he still will try out his new jokes on smaller audiences and, hole in the wall comedy clubs to this day. A friend of mine, not too, I think 3 years ago, went and actually saw him. And so, interestingly enough, you can get in with, I don't know, a $10 cover charge into one of those places, but to go to see him on an actual stage, it's hundreds of dollars. So isn't that interesting? Every single time you speak, you are collecting data. You're collecting data not only on the room and how people are leaning in or tuning out, but also on yourself. What are you loving? What are you getting into? Right? That's landing, and where's that alignment there? And you do need to evolve. You can't stay exactly the same. But if you do your analogy of Tony and his UPWs, I've actually had the privilege of working with the co-producers of some of his enrollment events, not the UPWs, but some of his enrollment events. And it's really, really fascinating to me because he's always looking at what is the mood of the world? What are people going through? What are they feeling? And it's still his core message. People want that strength. They want that motivation. They want to get out there and conquer the world to meet their goals. And that's the nourishment they go to Tony for. But he needs to relate to what they're going through. And you do that through anecdotes, through the stories that you pull in, through the thing that just happened yesterday to keep it current. But you don't stray too far from the brand that you've built. And if you do it ever so intentionally and ever so slightly so you don't lose everyone. Yeah, such important stuff.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's move into, you really, Brendan, have a way of putting together a talk that is impactful for years to come. And I love it because you are unassuming. You are not flashy. Like, some personalities get up there and do really flashy things to get attention. But there's just so much meat there that you capture that attention. That is not by chance, that's by skill. So can you speak to me a little bit about where that comes from? I know you at Masterclass, you have a very specific methodology. Now, you don't need to go into all of that, but if you can kind of give us a bird's eye level of, if I'm a speaker and I'm wanting to put together this killer talk, where do I start? I've got all the content. How do I put it together?
Absolutely, Antonia. So there's a couple of different frameworks we can cover today, but let's start with the easiest one, which is the way that people practice their talk. So I'll give you a quick analogy, and it's a very simple one. So we all know what jigsaw puzzles are. You know, those little boxes where you kind of open them up and there's like thousands of little pieces. So here's the question of the day, and it's not hard. It's not a hard one, Antoniette. So let's say you're working on this puzzle with me, and we're trying to build this together. Which pieces do we start with first, and why?
I always start with the outside and then fill in the
Exactly.
center. Yep.
And why is that?
It gives me a framework. It gives me something to work from.
Exactly. I completely agree. Right. And then to add on your point, they also have these little edge to them. So it's a lot easier to find in the box. So why am I
Yeah.
telling you that? Because most speakers don't practice their talks that way. Unfortunately, they do the opposite. They start with the middle first. So let's say you have a talk.
Mm.
I'm a speaker. I have a talk next week. It's a 30-minute talk. So what do? I present the 30 minutes over and over and over again. But after three, four times, I get a little tired. And then I start thinking, what's for lunch? And then I forget to present and practice. And then you kind of just get on the stage with what you got. Versus the way that I teach talks is it's the same analogy as puzzles. Start with the edges first, meaning just practice the first 3 minutes of the talk, but do it 10 times.
Mm.
So now in that same 30 minutes, what's happening is at the end of the 30-minute practice session, you have the best introduction you ever gave in your life. Same thing with the close, the last 3 minutes of the talk. Practice just the last three over and over and over and over and over again until it's absolutely perfect. And then you work through the middle. If you practice your talk just with that frame, instead of just doing it from the top to bottom all the time, you'll optimize the quality of your talk pretty quickly. That's the easiest tip to implement.
Okay, I love this. Okay, let's dive in a little bit because this is how I read a book, Brendan, and I've never looked at it from this point of view. So, anytime I go to read a new book, whether it's fiction or reference, right, nonfiction, I always skim the table of contents. I'll read the beginning, maybe few pages, and I actually, spoiler alert, read the last few pages because I want context so that as I'm going all the way through, I've got something to hang my hat on, right? I've got some frame of context, and it really helps me to absorb it even better. So I'll read the titles of the chapters and the outer boundaries. So when it comes to speaking, I love this because it's so important. If you nail that intro, right? Nail the end, bullet point the middle, because then you have the freedom to really, every audience is so different. The mood is different. Their language is different, right? Know their language. If you're speaking to a room full of engineers, is going to be different than if you're speaking to a room full of college students, right? You've got to understand their language. But if you nail that, oh, I love this. Okay, you nail the intro by starting in the outer edges, nail the extra, right? So that you've got those, then everything in between doesn't have to be so scripted. And I don't think it should be. I would like for you to speak to this, but I definitely do not love overly wordy slides if you have slides at all. And if you do, it should just really be either bullet points or images that support what you're saying but gives you the freedom. What I use slides for is to keep me on track because I do tend to wander, and so I know, okay, I've got a certain number of minutes per slide and I need to move on, and it gives me it keeps me organized, right? Okay, here is where I speak about this body of information, and I know I have a certain amount of time to do that, but it's not really scripted, so I can have that power and that freedom to really feel the mood of the room. Am I getting it? Do I get your process? Am I understanding?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely, Antoinette. And I love that what you said there. It's really just about optimizing the ends of the top end, the bottom end. The middle is a little bit more tricky because now the advice becomes a lot more nuanced. I'll give you an example. The first thing we always have to do as professional speakers is to really spend some time figuring out what type of speaker do I want to be, because there's different types of speakers. I'll give you a couple of examples right now. One is the intellectual speaker. So this type of speaker doesn't really make you take any action per se. They just get you to think in a different way. So you leave the talk going, I never really thought of it that way. So three examples that come to mind that fit that category well is Malcolm Gladwell, right? He when he speaks, right, he just gives out a bunch of different studies. You don't really leave with something actionable, but you leave with a curiosity, a different way of thinking. A second example of an intellectual is Seth Godin. So even if his
Love
books are
him.
very practical, his keynotes are very intellectual. It's like you'll listen and go like, I never really thought of it that way. And then a third example as well. It's just slipping to me actually. I had it in my on the top of my head, but I forgot, so I'll come back to it. The second type of speaker is the action oriented speaker. You all need to take action on this. This is what I want you to do. This is what we're going to do next. So, a good example could be Gary Vaynerchuk. I
Mm.
want you to post on social media today. Let's take action on this. Let's go garage sailing. He'll really push something to do.
Yeah.
Alex Hormozy is another great example, and I can
Yeah.
go on and on. And the third one's the motivational speaker,
Yeah.
right? Somebody like who has like this really tragic story. Amy Purdy is a great example of this in the speaker circuit. She has an amazing story how she became an Olympian. But the main idea here is really to take a step back and ask ourselves, who are the three speakers that I admire the most that I want to emulate and why? And that reflection goes a long way. And a lot of people don't do that.
Yeah, I really love this distinction: intellectual, action, motivation, right? Intellectual. It's interesting. I'm just trying to think of some of my favorite speakers and the ones that kind of like, too much, right? The motivational, the rah speakers, I don't really gravitate towards them. So I'm probably not going to be that kind of speaker, right? I do gravitate very much towards the Seth Godins, the Brendan Burchards, those kinds of speakers, because I want the meat. I want to be able to go and get nourished and then go out and implement. Um, this brings me to another point, Brendan, because I think a lot of speakers think that they have to fit into some kind of a role. How do you draw out of your speakers that you work with their UVP, right? Their uniqueness, so they're not trying to dance to somebody else's dance. We glean, right? We glean information from those who've gone before us. We don't want to become them. So let's talk about, how do I find my unique style?
Yeah, fantastic question, Antoinette. There's two frameworks that we follow there. The first one is going back to your point around, okay, how much do I take from other speakers versus how do I be authentic to my own message, which is something I frankly very much struggled with when I was much younger. This was probably 7, 8 years ago, where I didn't really have any clients, I didn't really have a business. I just wanted to be a speaker, and I wanted to coach on it, so I just started like copying people. And this is a framework I teach called LDM: learn it, do it, model it. So we start by learning the concept, which is what we're doing now on this podcast. Okay, now we know what an intellectual speaker is. We know what a motivational speaker is. The second one is really to do it, and there's nothing wrong with that. Which means take speakers you admire, and I literally get to do this with clients. We'll open up speech transcripts of different speakers they admire, and I go, hey, just present this talk as if you're them. Don't be shy to put on different hats. I call these speaker rotations. But then the third piece of LDM is really about model. So modeling means, in my opinion, now that we've understood what other people are doing, how can we take their framework and make it our own? What is our own spin on this? What is our own version of this? Which is the second piece of the framework, value. What does value even mean? I think Chris Do has the best definition of value. He says, tell me something I don't already know. So what you want to do with value, and I call this the golden nuggets list whenever I'm brainstorming with clients, is what are the insights of information that you have that you feel no one else talks about? And an example in this podcast is when I talked about the puzzle piece analogy, your immediate reaction, which is a compliment to me, which I'll receive because you've seen pretty much everybody in the industry. You're just like, I've never thought of it that way. So if Antoine Rose is saying that Brendan has shared something I haven't thought of, it means it's a golden nugget. But if it's not, then ideally you want to optimize for those.
Okay, learn it, do it, model it. I have seen so many speakers, and it's heartbreaking to me because my backstory, my passion is that these hidden gem voices get their solutions out there, right? Get their boots on the ground, hard earned, life level solutions and strategies to the people who are laying awake at night needing those strategies. Unless their voice gets out there, that person who can only receive from Brendan Kumarasamy or Antoniette Rose, they're not going to get it, right? You can tell somebody the very same exact thing that I tell them. I tell them it doesn't land. You tell them and they receive it because there's something in you that they can relate to, and vice versa. Right. And so every voice not out there speaking, not out there spoken, every strategy not spoken is somebody going without. And I'm very, very passionate about this, as you know, Brendan. So when it comes to learn it, do it, model it, I love your LDM model, especially because it's actually the letters to a ministry I used to work for years and years and years ago in the publishing industry. Um, I see so many people get stuck in learn it, right? They just need one more piece before they can feel confident enough to get out there. They just need one more consultant or one more class right before they can get out there and do the thing. And so much of your learning comes from what you spoke about earlier. You're collecting data every time you get out there and you speak. So at what point, Brendan, do you feel like, okay, you've got the basics, you've got the foundation that you need, now let's step into doing? Like, where's that bridge come for you?
Yeah, absolutely, Antoinette. Everyone has their own perspective on this. Mine is I just jump to the doing as quickly as possible, especially in the context of public speaking. Like, let's use an analogy around podcasting. So I've been on a lot of shows now, but when I got started, like I didn't get on any shows. No one wanted to have me on their podcast. And people ask me this all the time. They say, "Brandon, you've guested on hundreds of podcasts. Like, what's your advice?"
That's some big ones. Hopefully mine's one of them.
Yeah, no, I'm super grateful. I've been on some great shows, but the point, the real point is what I tell people is, my advice is to literally find a friend. I don't care what the friend is. Find a friend, get on a Zoom call with them, and have them pretend that you're just being interviewed. Because that's all this is at the end of the day. You're just a friend of mine interviewing me, which with obviously a lot of credibility, but you know what I mean? But that's not even necessary. Because if you just have a podcast, you could do this every week. You don't need anyone's permission. You don't need to pitch on shows. You don't need to do anything. My first presentation was in front of two people. I just took it was like my two of my friends, and it was really fun because I had like a theater event a few months ago in Montreal, and I just did another one for clips for what we're working on, right? And what's fun is like those two guys, one of them was at that first workshop, and now he's seeing me on like a stage with like 50 people in the crowd, and it's like a different vibe. But the point is simple: you can take action on speaking tomorrow. Find three people, I don't care if they're your family members, and present your keynote in front of them, because that's where you want to fail. That is the best place to fail. Where you don't want to fail is when an organization pays $10,000 for a speech, you get the gig and you bomb it. That is not good because the industry is very small. Instead,
Mm-hmm.
what you want to do is you do all the mistakes until everyone in your family and your friends are convinced that this keynote is amazing. Then when you get the paid gigs like I did, I was ready for them, and then I was able to crush them and get others.
You reminded me. You gave me a flashback. I didn't become a singer and I never aspired to. But my sister and I we built this platform in a tree, right? And we'd drag all of our family in these little chairs to watch us sing, Bye, bye, Miss American Pie. And Jeremiah was a bullfrog, all the fun songs. We would just perform. And we got better and better and better as little girls, right? Because every single time we did it, we would see when people would really get into it and we would get our moves down. You don't know what you don't know until you actually get it. You can get all the book work, you can get all the frameworks, you can get all the how to's. But until you put them into practice, it doesn't become your own. Your own style doesn't really emerge until you are in front of those audiences. You said fail in front of the mock audiences. I don't know if you want to call them that, but the
Yeah, that's
friendly
a great.
audiences, I should say. That's exactly why Jerry Seinfeld does what he does. If his new jokes, his new material does not land in that room, it's not going to land on the stages that are paying him probably upwards of 100,000. I'm assuming six figures or more to come and speak, and that's not where he wants to blow, right? A new joke, and so I would say that your advice is good for new and emerging speakers, but also well-established speakers, because new level, new devil, right? You reach a new, you evolve, and your audience evolves with you. And again, you don't want a pendulum swing on them, and you don't want to give them material that they're like, I used to get a lot out of Brendan, but I don't know. I don't know if maybe I've outgrown him. Right? You never want to get to that place, and you do that by getting in front of those friendlier audiences, testing out your material, seeing where they lean in, and collecting data for yourself. So such really great. information there. One thing I'd like to dive into, and one of the reasons why you and I have gotten to work together so much, which I've just been very honored and have loved working with you, is you help people build incredible talks. But in this industry, it's not build it and they will come, right? It's you can have the most incredibly effective whether it's motivational or transformational talk, but it's just going to collect dust on a shelf unless you also know your audience, know what their pain points are so that you can sell that talk far and wide. So those are two very different things, right? You don't build it and they will come. You build it with not yourself in mind. Hey, I'm a superstar. I'm going to really, I can really do this talk and be really great at it. You build it with them in mind. What pain am I going to answer to? What micro transformation are they going to walk away from my talk from that's going to keep them, it's going to nourish them then, but then keep them coming back? Like that Italian restaurant I talked about. I would get nourished, I would get satisfied, I would love it, but then I'd want it again, right? Because then I needed that next bowl of nourishment. Same with your talks. It should never be one and done. It should stir something up that they can digest at the moment, and then they'll want to come back to you. So can you speak to this body of information a little bit more? Number one, the concept between build it and they will come, the misnomer, I guess, and how you've kind of rectified that. And number two, how you keep them coming back, how
Yeah,
you build your
absolutely.
talks to keep them coming back. Yep.
100%, Antonietta. It's a fantastic point. I mean, I learned this the hard way, where I always thought if I just had the best product, I would be successful. And that's why my speaking business went up to a certain level, but it wasn't enough because not a lot of speakers get to 6 or 7 figures in this business for that reason. Even if they have the best talk in the world, they're not they're not going to be able to sustain themselves or their families if they're not able to market the talk just as well as they deliver it. And that's why I've built most of my success in this industry in coaching, because in coaching, in that business, it's a very different business where it's a lot easier to market because you're not marketing to organizations, or at least I don't. You market to the individual. If I just sell the individual on buying the coaching, well, they'll just tell their friends about it and they scale. And that's how I've scaled to the level that I'm at, that I'm super grateful for. But really the point is we need to do both. And this is what I ask entrepreneurs to consider always: is you need to be a master or at least a demi master of all. Because if you're just good at delivery but you're not good at sales and marketing, you'll lose. But if you're great at sales and marketing and you don't do any delivery, you also lose, because people will call you a phony. Like, people will talk bad about you. And I would say the easiest piece of advice I can give speakers that I've started implementing myself, and I wasn't doing it 6 months ago, I think it's insane that people speak on stage even for free and do not record their talks professionally. I think that's crazy, because doing that gives you the assets to market yourself better. And then the extra level that I do, because I have a really world class editing team behind me, and my production team is like, and then taking those talks and then getting the A+ editor to go through the talk and just create snippets and clips that you've had a chance to look at of you speaking, so that way people look at you and go, wow, this person's amazing on social media, and they want to book you.
Yeah, you can give a fantastic one sheet, right? You can give a great resume, but people believe what they experience. And so, even hearing a clip of you speaking and you get that, wow, okay, he's a sure bet. I can stake my job on bringing him in over the 20 other applicants, right? Yeah, very, very important advice that you just gave there. There are different levels of monetization, right? There's different forms of currency. Yes, we all love that $20,000 keynote check, right? 10, 20, 20, 10, 15, 20, whatever it is. That's a nice payday. Side note, nobody's ever paying for your day. They're paying for the decades that got you to the solutions that you're going to give them. But still, it's nice to get that keynote check, but your biggest payment is not really that check. it is in those other assets and in the people that get to experience you and then help spread your message, become your unpaid ambassadors, which is why your next great engagements generally come from your last great engagement, right? For that exact reason. So I let's dive into this just a bit. Let's say you're negotiating an engagement, right? You obviously you negotiate the speaker's fee, right? And if it's a big conference and you're in front of the right speakers, you may not get a monetary speaker's fee. Your speaker fee might come from some of these other assets that we're talking about right now. Number one, high quality video content is gold. Like that's worth well more than $10,000 because it lives on. It can get you 30 more engagements done right. And even if you don't have the world-class team that Brendan and I have, there is Fiverr, there's Upwork, there are people out there who are really good at editing. Doesn't have to be perfect. Sometimes scrappy is the new perfect. Sometimes people want what's relatable versus what's all polished, right? So that's a form of payment if you can negotiate that in. Another thing that I love to see is that while the energy is in the room, while you're still very top of mind, you ask that organizer or one of the leaders of that event, you negotiate this in, that they will step in front of that high quality camera, right, that's recording the whole event, and they will give just a snippet of their experience of you speaking. That's incredibly gold because that's telling the next decision maker, hey, they gambled on Brendan Kumarsamy and won, right? They gambled on Master Talk and they won. So if I gamble, I'm going to win. Huge. Another thing, actually, Tony Robbins in his early days utilized this, and it was brilliant. Tony Robbins was a 12-year overnight success. Everybody thinks he just came onto the scene, but he started out in little hotel rooms. You said one of your first talks was in front of 2 people. I think he gave talks in front of nobody sometimes when nobody showed up. He still gave that talk as he understood that in the talk is discovery, right? You see where you're strong and where there's area for improvement. But what he would negotiate in before anybody was really willing to take a gamble on him is, hey, he had no short of confidence ever, I think. He said, hey, if I knock your socks off and your audience's socks off, like I know I will, that you will personally introduce me to 3 colleagues, 3 other regions within your organization, 3 vendors who could also benefit from my talk, right? Those referrals, those introductions can lead to much more than any one keynote check could ever lead to. And there's other things that you can negotiate in. But for those speakers who are willing to accept the fullness of the value of speaking versus get really kind of laser focused in on that keynote check, that speaker's fee check, they're the ones with the bigger vision are going to make it. The ones with the 5-year goal versus the today, I'm desperate, I need to get that keynote check goal is they're going to fizzle out. They're going to be a flame that fizzles out pretty quickly. You really need to have that long range vision. And these kinds of assets are what support that long range vision.
I mean,
All
super
right,
well
so we
said.
are about 3/4 of the way through, and I know there's a good number of people in this audience who want to know, who is Brendan from Master Talk? How do I get a hold of him? How do I learn more? So what are some of the ways that you like to be found, Brendan?
Yeah, absolutely, Anthony. It's such a great pleasure to be on the show. Yeah, the easiest way to keep in touch is really LinkedIn. I know my name's a little difficult to spell, but the link will probably be in the show notes. So just add me on LinkedIn and send me a connection request and let me know what you thought about the show.
Yeah, and I always spell for those who are just listening in. We have, I get notes every day from people who listen to us pretty religiously as they're jogging or working out or, going on their walks. So, Brendan from Master Talk. Master Talk is one word. And Brendan is all E's, so like Brenden. Brendan. And then Kumarasamy, Kumarasamy. You kept it pretty easy. All the vowels are pretty much the same except for that first U.
Yeah, usually if you
From
just type
Sri
Brendan
Lanka.
with the K, then you'll find me.
Yeah, you'll find him. And well, you said something, Brendan, which I love. I think that, again, cart before the horse. A lot of speakers think that they have to have a perfect press kit, a perfect speaker website, all those things, right? Build it and they will come. Honestly, all you need is a solid LinkedIn profile and getting your voice out there, getting in front of the right decision makers on a consistent basis. It is 50 is not enough a month. This is a big industry with a lot of competition. Hundreds is more like it, right? You need to be in the right place at the right time. And if you utilize your LinkedIn page correctly, 20 to 30%, sometimes more, of your speaking engagements can come from LinkedIn alone. Don't even worry about your website yet, because if you build it, you're going to have to dismantle it and rebuild it anyway as you learn more about your audience and about yourself. As a matter of fact, confession time. I don't really have a real website. I've got landing pages, but pretty well it's all word of mouth because I'm good at what I do, right? You're good at what you do. That speaks for itself. People are going to come and seek you out and find you. I do have a solid LinkedIn presence. I believe in it very strongly. Follow LinkedIn's rules because you will get shut down if you don't. They are very, very particular, which is great. It's a safe space. It doesn't mean you won't get spammed every now and then, but it's a safe space of professional minds who are serious about business. And if you're a serious speaker about a serious business, speaking business, that's the place to be. So I love that you brought up LinkedIn.
Absolutely, Antonia.
All right, so let's dive into at Master Talk. You help people create a masterful talk that once you get the gig, the decision maker is going to feel very proud that they picked you, right? You're going to really deliver that transformation and that lasting sense of, that was time well spent, right? But how do you get to the point where we've already talked about that's not enough, right? Just having that great talk is not enough. How do you get to the point of getting yourself in front of the decision maker, right? Landing on their desk at the right time when they actually have been tasked to find somebody like you, whether they're an event producer or a corporate leader. But how do you get in front of the right people at the right time?
Well, I mean, I think the easy answer is just to work with you, Antonia. You're very good at what you do. But I would say my perspective on this is, yeah, I mean, getting in talk at the right moment at the right time. For me, most of the gigs that I've gotten, the subsequent ones, really came from me just crushing the talk. That's
Yeah.
really the most important thing. Like, I would say my biggest account right now is like an insurance company in the U.S., and they've hired me back every year for the past 6 years. And the reason is really simple. It's because I speak to their interns. Well, the next year there's going to be a new group of interns who haven't heard me, so they always bring me back. They write me a check every year to do that. So really, my the perspective I come from, which is the part that I know. But obviously, there's a lot of things I implemented from you, like the video testimonial. Genius. I love that. We did that at the last event. I just got a couple of people in the audience. Hey, come up and just say that if you like the talk. Obviously, say great things about speaking. We'll add them all into the speaker reel. So thanks for that tip. A lot of great things there. But I think for me, it really comes down to how many times have you actually practiced the talk. And if the answer is less than 100, you're not serious about winning in
Mm.
professional speaking. Like, even I struggle. I've done exceptionally well in coaching relative to my age, but even in the speaking business, it's very difficult. It's like making up as a musician. Not everyone's going to be Drake. Not everyone is going to be Sabrina Carpenter. Not everyone's going to be Tate McRae. And it's the same. It's the same game with speaking. Even if you're amazing, talented speaker, not everyone gets to be Tony Robbins or Les Brown or your industry's version of whatever that is. So it's really important that you put all the chips on your side. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're looking at your talk and you're saying, I've practiced this 7 times, forget about this game. This business is not for you. But if you're willing to practice that same talk 100 times, then you might have a chance. That's my thought on it.
There's a few key things that you said. That all of that was brilliant, Brendan, but there's a few key things that you said. Number one, you need to decide what speaking is going, what place in your revenue and business model is speaking going to hold. So are you serious about a serious speaking business? And if you are, it's no joke, right? It's hard lifting, heavy lifting. Every single day that engine needs to keep running. And if you're the speaker, the face, you need to focus on being that face, perfecting your talk, being the sure bet, solidifying your positioning and your visibility. You cannot be running that engine. It doesn't work that way. So I appreciate the recommendation. Certainly that's what our company does, but that whether it's us or somebody else, you cannot, as a serious speaker, do the volume of outreach that has to happen. Even Les Brown, to this day, you would think he's pretty much a household name. Even to this day, he has outbound going out at a very high level, because he understands the industry. So if you think that you could just build it and they will come, it doesn't work that way. There's so much competition and there's so much noise out there. You got to stay top of mind and relevant at all times. So I love that you said that. You didn't say this, but something along the lines of, if you're serious, you need to treat it like a serious business, right? And there's just no shortcuts. There are no, please do not automate. Let's say you are interested in a relationship with a new person, but you're like, I don't know if they're going to work out. So I'm going to just kind of automate and try multiple people and see what lands, right? A lot of speakers actually treat their speaking business like that. I'm just going to automate and just see what lands. The speaking industry and the corporate training industry and the conference industry is all about relationships, and you cannot automate relationships. There's nurture automations that you can do, give value, and people appreciate that. But if you're actually trying to automate the relationship side of things, you are not going to be remembered. You're not going to be top of mind, and you're not going to be positioned as a high value asset, I guess, in this industry. So I love that direction that you went. And the other thing that you said is third party validation, right? So you can say you're great, your videos can say you're great, but when someone else says that you're great, that holds so much weight. And so we so often miss the opportunities, I don't know, out of humility, or do not be embarrassed, right? Be bold and ask for feedback. Even if it's not great feedback, it's still all part of that data that you need to collect. So honest feedback is huge. Wow, we could go on, Brendan, because I know we haven't even touched the surface of what you have to offer, but we are at time. So I'm going to ask you SpeakPact's signature question, and that is, what challenge can you leave the SpeakPact audience today that they can put into practice right now? Never a better moment than right now to move your next step further, right? So we are all, this is what this show is about, is a universal impact to make the greatest, most powerful impact with the power of your voice as possible. What is that thing that they can implement today that can get them even further in that journey, Brendan?
Absolutely, Antoinette. Yeah, the big one for me is practice your talk today and practice it using puzzle. Practice just the intro 10 times, just the conclusion 10 times. If you just do that from this episode, you'll absolutely have gotten the value from today's lesson.
Okay, that's your challenge. You can do it right now. Go do it today. Don't put it off, because tomorrow never comes. If you're serious about a serious speaking business, create that boundaries of your puzzle. Like Brendan said, nail that intro, nail that outro, and practice it 100 times. I think you said something along the lines of, if you have not yet practiced your talk at least 100 times, you are not serious. So go be serious. Thank you for being my guest today, Brendan. You are a wealth of information. Definitely look up Brendan at Master Talk. And if you found value in this episode, which I know you have, be sure to help other people find us by liking it, posting it forward, giving your honest review of this show. This all helps the algorithms ensure that other people get this information out there. And again, we're on that universal impact to make the greatest impact with the power of our voices that is possible. Ciao, ciao for now.
Thank you for listening to the SpeakPact podcast. To become a recommended speaker of Antoniette's WPC speaker agency, or you are a host or planner looking for a dynamic expert in optimized performance, Antoniette would like to personally meet with you. Secure a time with her at speakerbooker.com. Again, that is speakerbooker.com. It all begins with a vision, a voice, and a pact to impact. Join the SpeakPact movement by joining our new private Facebook group at the link in our show notes. Find us on nearly every social media platform at One Antoniette. That's number 1, ANTONIETTE, or simply hashtag SpeakPact.